The alien maid at his door, and the government said no returns. Ethan was just finishing his coffee when the doorbell rang. It was early, too early for visitors. He looked at the screen above the door. The delivery drones weren't due till noon. No packages today. But someone was standing outside. Tall, still, unmoving. He opened the door slowly and saw her. She wasn't human. That much was clear from the glowing lines on her silver-blue skin. Her eyes were large, pale violet, and didn't blink. She wore a dark uniform with the Earth galactic emblem stitched on the shoulder. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just held out a sealed document. Ethan took it and opened it. Inside were 5 words that made his heart sink. Galactic Maid Program. Assignment finalized. Below that, name, Sela, species, Velari, type 3, service class, placement, domestic, long-term. Note, no exchanges, no returns. He stared at her. This is some kind of mistake, he said. She tilted her head slightly. You are Ethan Cole, male citizen 08927. Yeah, but. Then I am yours, she said calmly, until the cycle ends. Ethan stepped back. Wait, what cycle? I didn't sign up for this. She walked past him, straight into the apartment. Her steps were soft, almost silent. She looked around, eyes scanning the room. Then she walked to the cleaning station, picked up a duster, and started working. He followed her, confused and slightly panicked. I didn't ask for a maid. I live alone for a reason. She spoke without turning. The Earth-Velari Treaty requires at least 1 bonded assignment per household. You were selected. Selected by who? By compatibility, she said. He groaned. Can't I just? I don't know. File a form and undo this. She turned to him. Her face was still blank, calm, robotic, but her voice got quieter. There is no undoing. The rest of the day was awkward. Sela followed a routine. She cleaned, organized, and stood still when she had nothing to do. No phone, no tablet. She didn't eat, just moved and watched. At one point, Ethan caught her standing in the hallway, just staring at his bedroom door. He stepped out of the shower and nearly jumped. You need something. She blinked slowly. I am learning your patterns. Don't, he said quickly. That's creepy. She didn't respond, just walked away. That night, Ethan sat on the couch, trying to clear his mind. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she'd be gone by morning. He turned off the lights and went to bed. At 2:03 a.m., he woke up. The room was cold, quiet, and someone was standing at the edge of the bed. His heart pounded. He reached for the lamp. Sela stood there, unmoving. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. What are you doing? He asked, voice shaky. I was checking your heart rhythm. My what? You had an emotional spike in your sleep. He pulled the blanket tighter. Don't do that. She sat down on the floor beside the bed, not asking permission, just staying there. I do not understand why humans fear connection, she said softly. We were designed to serve, to bond. Ethan didn't answer. He turned away, staring at the wall. This wasn't right. This wasn't normal. But part of him, deep down, felt something strange. Like her presence didn't just disturb the room. It touched something inside him. And outside the window, a small drone hovered, watching, recording. Because this wasn't just about housework. The bonding program had begun. Ethan woke up to silence. Too quiet. Usually, the cleaning unit hummed or Sela moved around like a shadow. But today, nothing. He stepped into the kitchen and found her standing in the same spot as last night, on the floor, in the dark. Her eyes were open, her hands folded in her lap. She hadn't moved all night. You sleep like that? Ethan asked. I do not sleep. I wait, she replied softly. He blinked. Wait for what? Her head tilted. For your heart rhythm to stabilize. Ethan grabbed coffee, trying to ignore her words. But she followed him. Everywhere. From the kitchen, to the hallway, to the bathroom door. When he stopped walking, she did too. When he sat down, she stood beside him like a silent guard. You don't have to hover, you know, he muttered. I am monitoring. Monitoring what? She paused, then said, I am preparing for mating cycle. Ethan nearly dropped his mug. Your doe. She stepped back slightly. My species enters bonding season when emotional and environmental compatibility reach target. Target. This isn't a science experiment. She nodded slowly. It is. He stared at her. You're serious? Yes. Then she looked him in the eyes. No blinking. No emotion. And my body has chosen you. Ethan stood up fast, backing away. Hold on. No. You were sent here to clean floors, not choose a mate. She followed, calm as ever. Physical proximity, scent match, neural pattern detection. You meet all biological requirements. That's not romantic, he snapped. I was not programmed for romance, she said, but I am programmed for loyalty. She reached into her uniform and pulled out a small glowing crystal. This is my bond core. Once activated, it links us. Permanently. He stepped back, shaking his head. Nope. Not happening. I'm filing a protest. I'm talking to someone. Anyone. But when he logged into the government system, his profile had changed again. Status. Claimed. Bond phase. Pending acceptance. Bond partner. Sela. Volatile class. No cancel button. No way out. He turned to her. You hacked this. I did not. The bond process is automatic once compatibility is confirmed. Ethan sat down, overwhelmed. This is insane. Sela knelt beside him. Slow, careful, her voice gentler now. I know you are afraid. Your kind links love to freedom. But my kind links love to choice. He looked at her, surprised. That's the first thing you've said that feels real. She placed her hand over his. Then I am learning. Later that evening, she began cooking, strange ingredients from her own world. The smell was rich and calming. She placed a bowl in front of him. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because you have not chosen me. But I still hope you will. Ethan didn't reply. But he didn't push the bowl away either. He ate slowly, watching her, and deep in his chest, that strange feeling grew. Something warm, something dangerous. Outside, another government drone hovered, recording heart rates, tracking energy pulses, because the bond wasn't just emotional, it was evolving. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Not angry. Not cold. Just waiting. Like she knew he'd come back. At dawn, he packed a bag, pulled on a jacket, and slipped out quietly. Sela was standing near the window when he left. She didn't try to stop him, but she watched him go. He took the train to the city center. The Office of Galactic Placement was a tall building made of smooth silver glass. Inside, humans and aliens waited in long lines under soft blue lights. Ethan stepped up to the terminal and entered his ID. The screen flashed. Human ID. Ethan Cole. Status. Bonded. Partner. Volatile class service unit Sela. Bond phase. Pending final merge. Note. Revocation not permitted after phase synchronization. His hands clenched. He tapped through the menu. No cancel button. No live agent. Just a soft chime and a message. Congratulations on your union. He turned to leave, but two officers in black coats stopped him. Mr. Cole, one said. Yes. You're the Velari selection, correct? Ethan frowned. I didn't select anything. They didn't seem to care. One of them handed him a silver data chip. You've been added to the protected integration list. Please review the bonding protocol for Earthling pairs. Wait, Ethan said. I don't want to be bonded. The second officer smiled. It's not about want. It's about compatibility. Your DNA passed. Ethan stepped back. This is insane. I came here to stop it. The first officer's eyes narrowed. Do you understand what you've been given? Her kind bonds once. For life. Only a few humans have ever been chosen, and none of them were rejected, not safely. That word made Ethan pause. What do you mean, not safely? The officers didn't answer. They only handed him a small med pack. Inside was a card that said, Bond rejection side effects. Neural collapse, emotional fracture, memory loss. Ethan sat down slowly on a bench. The world felt far away. The screen above him played a calm ad. Volatile human pairing, building harmony across stars. Smiling couples, bright lights. A lie. Suddenly, his communicator buzzed. Incoming call. Sela. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. He turned it off. But inside, he still felt her. He returned home late. The apartment was clean. Food ready. Lights dimmed. Sela sat on the couch. Silent. Still. I went to the government office, he said. I know, she replied. He sat down, not looking at her. They said I passed some kind of test. Sela nodded. You did. I chose you. But your biology accepted me first. He looked at her then. For the first time, really looked. Her face was calm, but her eyes, they weren't just glowing. They were lonely. You're not a machine, he whispered. No, she said. I was trained to serve, but I was born to bond. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. She stood, walked past him, but paused in the hallway. I will not force you, but know this. If you reject the bond, it won't only hurt me. It will hurt you too. That night, he dreamed of her again. But this time, he wasn't running. He was reaching for her, and she was already waiting. Ethan woke up late. He was tired, not from lack of sleep, but from thinking. The bond, the papers, the officers, everything felt like a dream he couldn't wake up from. When he walked into the kitchen, Sheila was already waiting. She had made food again, different this time. Eggs, toast, and something purple that smelled like mint. Ethan sat down but didn't touch the plate. Sheila stood beside him, watching. You have not eaten in 17 hours, she said. I'm not hungry, he replied. You are lying. He looked up sharply. I didn't ask for a living truth detector, okay? Sheila blinked. I only said what I see. He stood and grabbed his jacket. I need air. She followed him. Outside, the wind was cold. The sky was gray. He walked fast. She followed without sound. Finally, he stopped and turned to her. Why are you always there? Because I am trying to understand you. You reject the bond, but not me. He rubbed his face. I didn't choose you. No, she said, but I chose you. And now I am trying to learn why my heart reacts to your sadness. Ethan looked at her, confused, silent. That night, she watched an old Earth movie, a black and white romance. She sat still, eyes wide, studying every moment, every touch, every word. Afterward, she asked, do humans only love when it is returned? Ethan hesitated. Sometimes we love people who don't love us back. Sheila nodded. That is painful. But it is still beautiful. Later, he found her on the floor again, sitting quietly beside his door. Hands folded, eyes open. Like always. He sighed. Why do you keep doing that? She looked up slowly. Because the moment I stop waiting, I feel empty. Ethan felt his chest tighten. But he didn't say a word. He closed the door. The next morning, she didn't speak at all. She cleaned quietly. No questions, no comments, just silence. And for the first time, he missed her voice. He watched her from the doorway. She was wiping the same surface, again and again, but her eyes were distant, lost. He stepped forward. Selah. She paused. I am functioning. I didn't ask if you were functioning, he said softly. Then why speak to me now, Ethan Cole? He hesitated. Because I think I'm starting to feel something. And that scares me. Selah turned. For the first time, her expression changed. Hurt. Small. I do not want to scare you, she said. I want to understand you. Not your routines, but your heart. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because part of him knew. He was starting to feel something too. But his fear was louder than his feelings. So he turned away again. And this time, she didn't follow. That night, the bond flickered inside him. Dimmer than before, but still there. Still waiting. It started with a knock. Firm. Loud. Official. Ethan opened the door and saw them. 2 humans, 1 alien, all in black uniforms. Government Patrol, Division 7. The woman at the front held a tablet. Mr. Cole, you've been flagged for a critical bond conflict. We're here for your alien maid. Selah. Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. Wait, what do you mean flagged? The alien officer spoke next. His voice was flat, emotionless. Your registered partner is in pre-mating phase, but shows signs of emotional delay. The bond cannot be allowed to stall. Unstable bonds are dangerous to her kind. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. Selah stood at the hallway's edge. She didn't move. She didn't speak. But her eyes, they were filled with something he hadn't seen before. Fear. We'll take her to Villari Station, the officer continued. The bond will be erased. Her memory will be wiped. She'll be reassigned. Ethan's chest tightened. What happens to me? The woman looked down at her tablet. You'll be fine. No further action needed. Humans recover. Selah stepped forward slowly. I will go, she said softly. If that is what you want, Ethan. Her voice was calm. But her hands were shaking. Ethan looked at her, then at the officers, then back to her. You're really just going to walk out? She nodded. Because I was made to serve, not to stay where I'm not wanted. The officers moved toward her, but something snapped inside Ethan. Stop. Everyone froze. He stepped between them. You're not taking her. The alien officer narrowed his eyes. Then you must initiate final bond merge. Now. Once started, it cannot be undone. You will feel her pain, her joy, her mind, her soul. Forever. Ethan looked at Selah. She stood still, waiting, not forcing, just hoping. He took one step closer, then another, and placed his hand gently on her chest, right over the soft blue glow. I don't want a servant, he whispered. I want you. Selah's eyes widened. Tears formed, but didn't fall. She reached up and touched the same place on his chest. Their marks glowed together, and in that moment, Ethan felt it. Her memories, her loneliness, her wish for love that wasn't programmed. The bond activated. Their bodies lit with soft gold and blue light. The apartment filled with warmth and silence. The officers stepped back. The scan on their tablet changed. Bond complete. Subject protected under Unity law. They nodded and left without another word. The door closed, and Selah stood there, quiet, unsure. Ethan pulled her into a gentle hug. I'm sorry, he said. I was scared. I know, she whispered. I was too. That night, she didn't sit outside his door. She lay beside him, Not as a servant, not as an assignment, but as a choice. And for the first time, Ethan didn't dream of escape. He dreamed of her. The room was silent. No alarms, no patrols, no orders. Just the soft sound of two heartbeats, one human, one Villari. But they no longer beat separately. They were slowly, sensing. Ethan opened his eyes. Scylla was lying next to him, watching. Not like before. Not as an observer, but as a partner. "Are you all right?" she asked. He nodded, rubbing his chest. "I feel warm, like something's glowing inside me." She reached out and touched the same spot on his chest. "That is the bond taking root. You accepted it, now it accepts you." He sat up, breathing slower than usual. Deeper. Everything felt clearer, sharper. The lights were brighter. The hum of the city outside was louder. Even her emotions, he could feel them now. "You're nervous," he whispered. She blinked. "Yes." He looked at her, surprised. "I didn't hear it. I just knew." "That means it has begun," Scylla said. Phase 2. Integration. Ethan stood, walking toward the window. He looked out at the city. It was the same view as always, but now the air felt alive. He touched the glass, and it warmed under his fingers. "I'm not normal anymore," he said softly. Scylla came beside him. "No, but you are not broken either. You are becoming." Later that day, he sat on the floor, breathing deeply. Energy flickered around his fingers, like sparks. He could feel vibrations in the walls. He could sense people in the building without seeing them. He wasn't afraid. He was curious and connected. To her, to something more. Scylla stood behind him. "Your brain is adapting to Villari signals. You're learning to sense what we call life threads. You may even begin to send your thoughts directly." Ethan turned. "You mean like telepathy?" She nodded. "But only with one other. Only with your mate." He stared at her. The bond wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just physical. It was transformational. And he had chosen it. That night, as they ate dinner together, he asked, "Why me? You could have chosen anyone. Why a tired, stubborn human like me?" Scylla looked at him with soft eyes. "Because you looked at me like I wasn't a tool. You spoke to me, not at me. You saw me." He smiled. "I guess I didn't see everything." "Now you will," she said, placing her hand over his. "Because now, we see through each other." Suddenly, Ethan's chest pulsed with energy. He gasped, gripping the table. "Scylla, what's happening?" She moved quickly to him, holding his face. "The bond is unlocking your core. Your body is preparing for the merge. You're almost ready." Outside, a Villari observation drone floated high above the building. It scanned the apartment. Its system flashed one message. "Merge status, 92% complete. Human adaptation. Unstable. Monitoring required." But Ethan didn't know that. He only knew one thing. Whatever was happening inside him, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like belonging. The sunrise was soft, golden, and quiet. Ethan stood on the rooftop, looking over the city. The wind moved gently through his hair, but he wasn't cold. Not anymore. The mark on his chest had stopped glowing. It didn't need to. Now, it simply was. The bond wasn't a thing inside him anymore. It had become part of him. Scylla stepped beside him, holding 2 cups of warm tea. She offered one to him. He took it. Their fingers touched, no sparks, no flash, just calm. A steady connection. "We completed the merge last night," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "I felt it." They didn't need words anymore. But they still used them. Because that was something human. And she liked it. Scylla sat on the bench, her posture softer than before. "I was made to obey," she said. To be useful, to clean, to listen. She looked down. But with you, I learned to exist. Ethan placed the cup aside and sat beside her. He turned to face her. You weren't made to serve. You were made to feel, to grow, to choose. She looked into his eyes. Then I choose this. Not because of the bond, not because I was sent here, but because you let me become someone. He reached into his coat and pulled out the small silver ID chip they gave him the day she arrived. He crushed it in his palm. Then no more titles. No more assigned roles. You're not my maid. You're my equal. A soft smile touched her lips. Not programmed. Not practiced. Real. News spread quickly after that. The first true human Velari merge. No collapse. No severance. No loss. Only gain. The Galactic Council called it a miracle. Others called it a mistake. But Ethan didn't care what they called it. He only cared that when he reached out, she reached back. Together, they moved into a quieter part of the city, built a home with both Earth and Velari design, windows that breathed, walls that sang, and a garden that glowed at night. Some nights, they spoke without sound, shared memories, shared warmth. One heartbeat, two lives. One evening, while watching the stars, Sela whispered, I used to be afraid I had no soul. Now I think, I have yours. Ethan pulled her close. No, he said softly. Now you have ours. And far above Earth, in a silent council chamber, a new law was written. Not every bond is assigned. Some are earned, because she was meant to serve. But he gave her a choice. And together, they chose each other. The end.